Good morning and welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Wednesday, the 20th of November. I'm Stephen Ridgway. Oracle has warned of a vulnerability in its Agile PLM solution, Agile Product Lifecycle Management Framework, to be precise, which is currently under active exploitation. So the vulnerability is tracked as CVE 2024 21287 with a CVSS score of 7.5. So pretty serious, but not the worst that we've seen. The vulnerability allows for exploitation remotely without authentication. Let me get my words in the right order. And can result in file disclosure amongst potentially various other bits and pieces. There's no indication at the moment as to who it is that's exploiting this particular vulnerability. However, it has been seen to be exploited. So would recommend keeping an eye on this if you are using Oracle Agile PLM. I am uncertain at the moment whether patches or workarounds are available because I only came across this a moment ago whilst I was doing some research. So if you're using it, have a look, check in with Oracle and see what the recommendations are. As always, if you're not in a position to do anything about it right now, make sure you've risk assessed that decision based on business risk, not just cyber risk. Apple has released urgent updates to patch an actively exploited zero-day vulnerability. So there are updates for iOS, iPadOS, macOS, visionOS, and Safari, and they're addressing two vulnerabilities that are under active exploitation in the wild. So the vulnerabilities are CVE 2024 44308 and 44309. 44308 is a vulnerability in JavaScript core that could lead to arbitrary code execution when processing malicious web content. 44309 is a cookie management vulnerability in WebKit that could lead to cross-site scripting when processing malicious web content. Apple has said that the patches will address both issues with improved checks and improved state management, respectively. So at the moment, there doesn't appear to be a great deal of information out there around the nature of the exploitation, but Apple has acknowledged that the vulnerabilities may already have been exploited on Intel-based Mac systems. So if you are running Macs or other Apple devices, check for updates. So there are updates available for iOS 18 and iOS 17. There's patches available for macOS Sequoia 15, visionOS 2.1.1, and Safari 18. So as always, with these sorts of things, your devices will probably update themselves if you leave them long enough. If you are concerned, go in and nudge them, and they should go look for the patches and update themselves. Always worth making sure that things set to automatically patch and update themselves actually are doing so. And also on that one, even stable devices built on Linux, BSD, whatever it may be, every now and then give them a reboot anyway. It does no harm. And whilst you can quite merrily leave some operating systems, probably Windows these days, I don't know, running for very long periods of time. It is still a good security practice just to reboot occasionally. Okay, and then finally from me today, short and sharp briefing this morning. But this is kind of more in the geopolitical security arena. But China-backed groups have been attributed with using SIGTRAN, GSM, and GSM protocols to infiltrate telecom networks. So you might have been, if you've been following this sort of high-level story over the last few months, there have been a lot of attacks against telecoms organisations. A lot of that's based around attacking US telecoms, but as a nature of the interconnectivity of these things, it also sweeps up all sorts of other parts of the world, mainly aimed at companies based in the West or supporting Western democracies. CrowdStrike are naming this particular adversary Liminal Panda. I don't know where they get these names from. But basically, it appears that this particular group is very well educated in the inner workings of telecoms organizations, telecoms protocols, how they all hang together. Now, I know that historically, inside the telecom carrier networks, security has not been as good as it could be. I'm being nice. In the past, it's been pretty awful. A lot of implicit trust, especially around handoffs from one telecom provider to another. I think telcos have relied rather on obfuscation as security, which I don't think is it certainly isn't a good long-term strategy. But yeah, as we can see, once adversaries gain an understanding of how some of this stuff hangs together, exploiting it is much easier. So what can we do about this? Well, other than being generally more vigilant, unless you're working in the telecoms space, in which case definitely one would hope that there is pressure to put this defense against this sort of nation state stuff high on the agenda. Other than that, I think it's just worth being aware of the fact that these networks, which are considered to be, generally by the public, considered to be secure, or not even they're thinking about security or not security, they're just a bit of a non-event. As in, they just don't hit the radar from the point of view of, do I care about the security of stuff on them? Well, it's worth being aware of the fact that they're not as secure as they could be, and that they are being actively targeted by some well-funded and very sophisticated groups. I mean, China's offensive cyber is a mixture of directly funded, actual government agencies, criminal groups, and some private enterprise as well. So it's a complicated adversary arena in China. But in the end, the one thing that is, I think, irrefutable about it is that you don't get to do any of this stuff based out of China unless you have reasonably clear, a reasonably clear mandate from the Chinese government. So this stuff is it is worrying, especially given that in a world which, as we were saying yesterday, call me a conspiracy theorist, but things are, I don't remember a time since the 1970s or 80s when it felt like the world was at this level of threat from, and at least then the people that were threatening the West behaved in predictable ways. There are a lot of very unpredictable adversaries, and I don't think that we understand yet in the West quite how much these people don't want to become like us. So, yeah, definitely worth being aware of these things. Telecoms underpins a great deal of not only sort of national defence, but also our way of life here. And we know that for the majority of nation-state adversaries, they've settled on the strategy of causing chaos, causing disruption, is a good way to destabilise regimes that they particularly would like to see fall. In which case, being able to disrupt critical national infrastructure, including telecommunications and finance, probably the top of the list, but transport and energy sector would also be in that, and so would health, I guess. So yeah, remain vigilant, be aware of the fact that stuff's going on. If you are in a position to do anything about it for your own organisation, definitely make sure that nation-state adversary is not dismissed out of hand as a significant threat. In a previous organisation I worked for, I went through a very well-known membership organisation's methodology for identifying most likely adversaries and most likely cyber threats, and came out with nation state. Took it to the board, and the board laughed and said, "No nation state is interested." Ha ha ha. Well, yes, it turned out they actually were. Well, there we go. Just goes to show. Anyway, that's all from me for today.